It's taken from our Six Music Classic album of the day, the second in a short series, this time covering albums from the 70s, 80s and 90s. This week, 1983, and the album Script of the Bridge by the Chameleons. Mark Burgess from the Chameleons joins us. Thank you very much, because you've had to come down from Manchester today, and you've had the flu.
Yeah, I did. I got a bout of the flu. So I've had to reschedule this a couple of times, but we're here now anyway.
There's a lot, including lyrical threads on this album, which we may pick apart later on. But let's start with that track, Monkeyland. I have this image of you standing in the town centre with everything whizzing around you and you stock still, just thinking, does everyone feel differently to me?
Close. I was walking my dog in the backfield looking up at the stars, actually.
Were you?
When it first started coming to me. And I remember at the time, somebody actually commented, I think something in the NME said, oh, it sounds like it's been written by a sixth former, which was quite close to the truth. I mean, I'd only been out of school about a year when I did it.
Just so I can shade in this vision, you're from just outside Manchester?
North Manchester, about 5 miles out, yeah.
Does that make you 5 miles outside of everything that was going on in Manchester?
Yeah.
In a way.
We made a point of being apart from it. We check it out a lot. But, I mean, you know, obviously at the time, like be about 78, 79, 1980, everyone was factory. But for us, it was more about object music, to be honest.
Right.
The factory thing was only kind of, it was there, but it didn't have that big an impact on us. And I remember when Dick Witts was instrumental in forming the Manchester Musicians Collective, and we went along just to see what it was all about. But we were just, we were just like sitting in the back of the room with our arms folded, just tutting and stuff. That was a big gap, that 5 miles.
Looking at the time, Liverpool's producing, all these flamboyant mavericks like Julian Cope and Pete Wiley, and Manchester is almost overrun with people who, well, maybe didn't fit in, but certainly were more insular, the Ian Curtis's, even Devoto to a certain extent, I think.
You find it, don't you? You find when you have like two very prominent bands at the summit of a scene like that. For us, it was Joy Division on one end side of it and The Fall on the other. Yeah. And then you tend to have, the way we looked at it anyway, was that you tended to have about 500 variations on those two themes. Do you know what I mean? We were aware of that and didn't want to get sucked into that at all. Yeah. And you talk about Liverpool, I mean, to be honest, we were listening to more of the Liverpool bands than we were, or as many as the Liverpool bands as we were in Manchester. I think we were actually going to move to Liverpool at one point.
Were you?
Yeah, there was talk of it. That was before we had a name or anything. We related to it more than we did to what was the factory lot we're doing, really.
So did you know when you formed the band, did you know what you wanted to sound like?
No, we just know what we didn't want to sound like.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the early days, was the sound evolving quite quickly? And when did you think, right now, I think this is it?
I think it was after we did the Lily White session. I think he really helped us define that. And make it a little bit more sophisticated. I mean,
that's Steve Lillywhite.
Steve Lillywhite, yeah. I mean, if you listen to the first Peel session, you'll hear a lot of flanger, and Dave was very into his flanger at the time, I recall. And then, we discovered the 501 Roland, and that was it.
It becomes really distinctive, though, doesn't it? You're right in that there's nothing really around like you. I mean, partly that's the guitar sound. Partly
it's mainly the guitar sound, really, I think.
Yeah, and your voice, I think. Because there is this, when people say, listen to the voices in your head, your voice sounds like the voice in my head. It's slightly soulful, slightly doleful. It's that sort of deep and eerie voice.
I didn't realise I was going to be the singer. I mean, I joined the band. When they asked me to join the band, I thought I was going to be a bass player, and we were going to get a singer. Yeah. And they just said, no, we want you to do the singing as well, because they'd seen me with this little punk band that I had. Right. And I was kind of surprised by that. But when you're first starting out, you're kind of singing like the people who you admire. The ideal is to have a voice that when somebody hears it, there's no mistaking who that is. Like Morrissey, for example. You hear Morrissey singing and there's no doubt whatsoever who it is. And that's the ideal, and it takes a long time to get to that, really. It takes a while, and I was kind of thrown right in the deep end because I'd only been with Dave and Reg as what became the Chameleons for about 6 months, and then I'm working with Steve Lillywhite, so it was kind of like I was thrown into it,
So you did various, 3 Peel sessions, I think, over the course of time. Yeah. And you must have been, I guess, gigging at the time. When did the record labels start hanging around? Because you signed a few of them deals.
We hadn't played hardly at all, because we had a lot of musos around us, like old 60s musos going, you need to play here, get out and play here, play there, play everywhere. We tried playing a few places, and we were playing in these pubs in Manchester, and we were like, what are we doing this for? We spent half the time hiding behind tables, fights broke out, and we were like, what are we doing? So we decided like we'd focus on the songwriting and push it.
Yeah.
And the guy who's still with me now, Tony, who's closest to us, it was him who just said like, you need to get a Peel session, guys.
And is it true you came down and basically doorstepped him?
Yeah. Yeah. We just sat outside over there on Portland Place and just waited for him to come past. And you know, to be fair, we'd sent him a tape. Our drummer hadn't turned up. He was auditioning for a cabaret brand across town, and we all turned up to do it. We had no drummer, so we just said, "Oh, we'll do it anyway." We did it without drums and sent it him, and he replied. He sent me a letter. He sent us a letter and said, "It sounds like something really worthwhile's going on. If you do a proper studio tape, make sure that I get to hear it." So we just ran with that. You know, we sold everything we didn't essentially need. I literally emptied our pockets in cargo to pay for the demo.
Right.
And then me and Dave were straight on the train, and we sat outside with the letter and the tape till he came past. And yeah, he was great. And he just said, like, he says, give me an hour with it. So I'm not going to listen to it. I sat there staring at me. He says, like, just give me an hour. And so we went and had a coffee up the road there, and he come back afterwards in the metals, and he just said, is this really you? And that confused us, you know. But David, he didn't have a cassette box, so he'd stuck it in a cassette box with the name of Fast Cars on the side of it, which was a band at the time.
Right.
And we went, oh no, it was just a box. We didn't have a box. And he said, well, have you what you called? And we said, we don't know. We haven't got a name either. It was just like complete shambles. So that was on a Friday, and then on the Monday morning, he phoned me up at home and just said, we want you to come in immediately. And he put me on to his producer. It wasn't John Walters. I can't remember who it was. But he came on and he just said, got this new state-of-the-art place at Maida Vale. You can wait till that's finished, or you can do it on the 8-track Langham right away. And I just, you know, I didn't even talk to the others. I just said, Dad, we don't want to wait. We don't want to wait. We're going to do it at Langham, because I knew who'd worked there. I knew all those sessions that he'd done, you know, at Langham House. And then I phoned the others and just said, you know, meet us down at Alice's. I've got some news. And, well, it was really exciting, man.
Yeah.
It was, but I thought it was a wind-up when he rang. I thought a mate was winding me up, because everybody knew we'd gone down there, you know.
Yeah.
I thought someone was impersonating him on the phone. It took about, like, 30 seconds for it to drop, then it was actually John Peel on the phone. It's dead weird, hearing him on the phone, his voice.
So, I mean, this creates more, obviously, more interest. So you signed to Static eventually to make the record, is that right?
Yeah,
so
we did eventually, yeah. We went through the CBS thing, and we made In Shreds, which to this day is my favourite actual Chameleons record.
Yeah.
And we threw it together in a day, and then at the end of the day we mixed it in like 15 minutes just so that we'd know where to pick it up from.
Yeah.
You know, we just signed to CBS, so I had a bit of money in my pockets. So I went and bought a Sony Walkman. Amazing. One of those hi-fis in your hand, you know.
Yeah.
And I was playing it on that, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe how good it sounded. And I ran over to Dave's, gave it him, and just said, just listen to that. We just said, we don't need to do anything more. But then Steve hated it. He's like, no, you can't, no. It took us like ages to persuade it. And then I think they put it out to Humorous in the end. And then he was working with a lot of people, and there were a lot, you know, he was working with other artists, and they were coming in and saying like, oh man, In Shreds, what a great single. And it changed his mind a little bit. So then he considered producing the record, producing the album. And I thought really had him, because he said, I'm either going to do the third U2 album or I'm going to do yours. He says, and I never do 3 albums with one band. So I thought, oh, it's looking good. I really wanted to do it. Dave, really, he wasn't that bothered about it, because I don't think he was that impressed with him. But I really wanted him to do it. You know, I just thought it was great, you know. But then he turned it down. They started introducing us to all these producers, different producers, and they were all like, well, you know, View from Mill, take this track, View from Mill. Like, you can't have that. You have to cut the end off. And we're like, what? That's the end of the record. What are you talking about? You know, we were like at odds all the time with everybody that we suggested. And in the end, we just said, right, we're going to do it ourselves. Put us in a decent studio. I think we asked for Abbey Road or somewhere like that. And then just, and Muff Winwood's face went white. And I think about 3 days later, we got the message that we're off the label. But we were philosophical about it. We thought, good. Okay, good. We can do it how we want to do it. And Static had put out an album with one of our tracks on a compilation, so we'd had dialogue with them. So Dave and our mate James went over to talk to him, and he said, "Yeah, I'll put it out," and that was it. Brilliant. And he just said, "You can do what you want with it."
So when you walk in to actually start making the album, is there a feeling of confidence in the air?
Totally. Yeah. I think working with the BBC, by that time, I think we'd done 2 sessions for John Peel, and we'd done one for Dave Jensen. So we'd be working with really good people. So we'd learned a lot. That was the thing about Lillywhite. He wouldn't let us in the room when he was doing things because I wanted to learn how he compiled and, you know, I wanted to learn things. And he's like, trade secret, you know. And I'm like, God, we're paying you a fortune. You know, at least let us learn something. But, you know, he wouldn't. But with the BBC guys, we learned a lot from, and that did us really good. So yeah, we were confident, and we were cocky and full of ourselves and arrogant, and you know, we knew it all.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. Yeah. We'll pick up the story. Script of the Bridge is the album of the day, our classic album of the day from the Chameleons, and this a track that you'll doubtless know. This is Up the Down Escalator. It's from our classic album of the day, Script of the Bridge, Up the Down Escalator by the Chameleons. Every time we play that record, we get texts from people applauding its majesty. It's being handed down, isn't it, this record, from wave to wave, because all sorts of people, I mean, there's a list as long as your arm, but Interpol, Slow Dive, The National, all these people have acknowledged you. And you were saying off air, The Verve as well were fans.
Yeah, it's surprising. And, you know, obviously I don't hobnob with people in bands as a really not deliberately, I just don't mix in the same circle. So like all the feedback I get from people who buy the record or who've played their dad's copy or whatever, you know, I get a lot of youngsters coming and what the impact that it's had on them, and that really amazes me.
We'll talk a bit about what sort of impact it had on people in a second, but just to finish off, in the studio, the cocky you lot, were you at the same time though quite precious about it? Were you very serious?
Very serious about it.
Were you constantly taking it apart and putting it back together, or is it just it's this take? This has got more feeling about it.
It was very much done in the studio. We went into the studio with it half arranged. You know, we had the bones of it. You know, and I remember like Dave getting really frustrated with View from a Hill because we just couldn't seem to get that ending right. Yeah. And then I was like saying, well, just wait till we do it in the studio. And then of course when you have it in the studio and you have the control over it, we did a dropout halfway through it, that instrumental ending, and the only things that are left in were the things that we didn't have enough fingers to cover. You know, so like because we just like you know,
so you can't literally fade them down because we've run out of hands.
Yeah, it was like and kind of knew there was a couple of things that wanted left in, but you know, some of the things that were an accident, and then Reg punching in a little bit early was inspired. Yeah. That he knew what he was doing with that. Yeah. And once we got it, we thought, right, we've orchestrated it, and that kind of thing happened in the studio a lot. You know, I mean, Dave was really strong at. What I really loved about him was you never knew what he was actually going to do. We'd get the idea, and then he'd always throw in something that you'd never heard before, like spontaneously. And I remember with Up the Down Escalator, we needed, for later on in the album, we needed one of those pipes, you know, those pipes you whirl around that make noise. They'd had one in the studio and lost it. And me and John were sent off on a mission to find another one. So we went to a fairground. So we tried to buy it. We was like saying, well, we found one. And we were like, we'll give you a tenner for it. Nope, we got to win it. It must have cost us about 50 quid in dart throws. But we got one in the end. But while we were doing that, Dave was putting his guitars down on the escalator. Yeah. And when we came back, he said, right, I've done it, listen to it. And me and John just looked at each other because his guitars on that track are majestic, man. Yeah, they just saw. And we'd never heard that before. So we were like, and then you know what? That was the point when I thought this is going to be a great record. You know, I just knew, and I heard that take.
It's an odd record to fall in love with in a way because there's quite a lot of sort of oddly unsettling images. You start with Don't Fall, which, I mean, it's like being in someone else's dream sequence.
Yeah, that was very much like that. I had a really bad trip one night, and I was really fighting to hold it together. Yeah, you know, because I had to walk quite a long way home, and Don't Fall came out of that. I think I wrote the lyric the same night.
There's a lot of asking questions, isn't there? Asking questions of yourself or randomly throwing these questions into the ether.
Yeah, as I say, I'm just trying to make sense of what's going on around me.
Yeah. You know. And do you think that then is one of the things that people find in your music? Because obviously it got to a lot of people who were on a similar wavelength.
Yeah, I don't really know why that is. I think it's great that people can relate to it in their own way and relate to their own circumstances and predicaments. All I can say is that they were very much generated by what was going on around me. I mean, if you take in Shreds, that was totally what was going on around me. You know, The Whore in My Bed is CBS Records. You know, the whole ethos of it, the madness, because we were brought to London and it was a circus. It was madness. We were being paraded here, paraded there. We were sitting down with people like Miles Copeland going, "I'll make you a millionaire in 12 months." It was just insane, you know. And we were just like trying to make sense of that. You know, I wish I'd been more like Reg. Reg just fell asleep at these meetings, but I was kind of like, what is going on, you know?
And when you got to the end of For the Record, were you pleased with it? Were you as excited as when you'd heard that first mix of In Shreds? Yeah.
I mean, I just thought it was great. I'm really, really happy with it. I had a beginning, a middle, and an end. It was just, and the ending was, I love that ending. And we were all getting on so well, and I think we captured that on that record. You know, we were all really tight at the time. We were very believed in each other, and we were there for each other, and we supported each other, and, you know, sadly that I got eroded with the business in the end. But at that time, we caught it.
Because tell us about, because you know on the sleeve notes it says, you sign off, Mark Burgess, 5 o'clock in the morning, Notting Hill Gate.
Yeah.
Good night then?
Yeah, great night, yeah. I was just watching Reg do the sleeve.
Right.
We were just like at a table at Notting Hill where James, our friend, had his flat. We used to stay there, but crashed there on the floor and that. And then somebody said to me, "You got to do the sleeve notes." And, you know, so, oh, right, okay. And I just did them in about 5 minutes, bouncing off Reg, just having a laugh.
And you did do some gigs around this point, didn't you? Because around this point, then, you become one of those bands that people start following around. Yeah,
well, it was surprising. I mean, our first shows, when we finally got our drummer sorted out, which took a while, we finally found John. And his first gig was opening for Altered Images.
Really?
In Manchester, like a couple of thousand people. And then I think we did three of those. And then the next, I think his fourth gig ever with us was with U2 at the Lyceum. But we were getting these amazing gigs.
Yeah,
but we'd not played.
Yeah.
We'd just been stuck in this room over this pub writing songs. We'd hardly played any gigs. So when it started to happen, I think I can remember it was, what's that place over by the Mall?
ICA?
Yeah, we played there. Headlining, you know, it was like, and we walked on and people were cheering when we walked on. You know, we were like looking at each other, like looking behind us to see if somebody had come on. Couldn't kind of like get our heads around it.
And what was the reaction to the record like then?
The reviews were like 99% awful.
Were they?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, they didn't like us at all. We didn't really fit. Didn't really know what to make of us. It didn't really make any difference. We were so kind of like together at that point that, you know, it was water for ducks back. We just used to laugh and take the piss out of it, and it had no impact on our audiences, which continued to kind of grow.
And how the album has proved the reviews wrong over the years.
Well, yeah, it's still. You know? I mean, yeah, even when I got the reissue, Guy Massey remastered it at Abbey Road for free. I sent an email to his management and I just said, you know, he name checks us on his website, and I've got very little money, but this is what I want to do. And his management going like, she wrote to me, she said, well, you know, he's just won the Grammy for the Beatles, he's very busy. I'll tell him, but yeah. I said, well, it's worth a shot, you know. 2 hours later, I get a message back going, yeah, he wants to do it. I had to then sell it to the guy who was looking after the Chameleons because he had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I phoned him up and said, like, you know, we didn't get a vinyl on the 25th anniversary, and I'm gutted about that, and we should really do a vinyl, Simon. Vinyl's where it's at. He said, yeah, I can't really justify the cost of it. I said, well, supposing we got someone really good to master it. And it's like, well, you know, yeah, but it's budget. He said, like, who are you thinking of? I said, oh, I don't know, Guy Massey. And he laughed at me. He's laughing. He said, you can't, you know, we haven't got that kind of budget. I just said, but just say that we could. And he said, that, of course, that would be completely different. Yeah, of course, if we got something like that would be different. I said, got news for you, mate. I said, he's already said he'd do it. I said, he just wants 2 days in Abbey Road. And Simon I think it was like 30 seconds before he said anything on the phone. It was like you could hear the wind on the line.
The songs live on live as well. You've been doing some dates with them and dates to come. Well, obviously, you've not lost touch with the songs, but becoming probably reacquainted with them again. Is it like looking through an old photograph album?
No, it's not. It's because they feel so relevant. We were told when we were trying to kind of reissue the record and push it, again, you know, Friendly Neighbourhood, anyway, were saying, well, we're not going to feature because they're not relevant. And I'm like, how can you say that a person isn't safe anywhere these days isn't relevant? And this was only days after the Manchester riots. And I'm saying, like, how can a song about violence not be relevant? You know, it's really made me angry. But when I'm performing it, no, because if anything, they're more relevant now than they were when they were written.
You have got various dates in a variety of guises coming up later in the year.
Yeah, we might even be going out east for the first time. I think it's looking like 90. I think I was told it was 95% that we're going to be going to like Hong Kong and stuff. And that mystifies me, kind of like, because I'm saying, well, have we got an audience then? Oh yeah, very much so, very much so. So I'm like, I'm really curious to figure out what it is they're relating to.
Oh, you have to send us a postcard from there. Not an electronic one. Right, we go old school on this programme.
A proper one with stamps and everything.
It's been an absolute pleasure. It's our Six Music classic album of the day, Script of the Bridge. Well, I've picked 2 tracks. You pick one.
Less Than Human.
Okay, here it is from the Chameleons on Six Music. Outside Manchester.
North Manchester, about 5 miles out, yeah.
Does that make you 5 miles outside of everything that was going on in Manchester?
Yeah.
In a way.
We made a point of being apart from it. We check it out a lot. But, I mean, obviously at the time, like be about 78, 79, 1980, everyone was factory. But for us, it was more about object music, to be honest.
Right.
The factory thing was only kind of, it was there, but it didn't have that big an impact on us. And I remember when... But
let's start with that track, Monkeyland. I have this image of you standing in the town centre with everything whizzing around you and you stock still, just thinking, does everyone feel differently to me?
Close. I was walking my dog in the backfield looking up at the stars, actually.
Were you?
When it first started coming to me. And I remember at the time, somebody actually commented, I think something in the NME said, it sounds like it's been written by a sixth former, which was quite close to the truth. I mean, I'd only been out of school about a year when I did it.
Just so I can shade in this vision. You're from just out...
You find it, don't you? You find when you have like 2 very prominent bands at the summit of a scene like that. For us, it was Joy Division on one end side of it and The Fall on the other. Yeah. And then you tend to have... The way we looked at it anyway was that you tended to have about 500 variations on those 2 themes.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? We were aware of that and didn't want to get sucked into that at all.
Yeah.
And you talk about Liverpool, I mean, to be honest, we were listening to more of the Liverpool bands. This was instrumental in forming the Manchester Musicians Collective, and we went along just to see what it was all about. But we were just we were just like sitting in the back of the room with our arms folded, just tutting and stuff. That was a big gap, that 5 miles.
Looking at the time, Liverpool's producing, all these flamboyant mavericks like Julian Cope and Pete Wiley, and Manchester is almost overrun with people who, well, maybe didn't fit in, but certainly were more insular than Ian Curtis is, even Devoto to a certain extent, I think. It's taken from our Six Music classic album of the day, the second in a short series, this time covering albums from the 70s, 80s and 90s. This week, 1983, in the album Script of the Bridge by the Chameleons. Mark Burgess from the Chameleons joins us. And thank you very much, because you've had to come down from Manchester today, and you've had the flu.
Yeah, I did. I got a bout of the flu. So I've had to reschedule this a couple of times, but we're here now anyway.
There's a lot, including lyrical threads on this album, which we may pick apart later on.